the increase in the case numbers have been highly exponential. As a member of a Canadian civil organization, I represent the Canadian movement towards reconciliation with the indigenous people here on the international stage. Lives for Literacy stands with the members of First Nation communities as they fight for their basic rights to education, water, and housing. We stand with the members of these communities as they fight for Aboriginal land titles and work to be heard by the federal government of Canada. So people who exert themselves to the fullest and tackle each problem as it arises don't really experience hardship as such. They instead see everything as a joyful challenge. So I would like to welcome Dr. Manpreet Singh Nanda, who will be sharing his COVID duty experience as well as being diagnosed with the COVID. Sir is the professor of ENT, deputy medical superintendent, and director of IQAC of Maharishi Markandeshwar Medical College and Hospital, Himachal Pradesh, India. We welcome you, sir. Thank you for joining in.
Thank you, Vipra.
So I would like you to begin by saying a few words about the burden of COVID-19.
Okay, first of all, thank you for inviting me uh, to your webinar. Regarding the burden of COVID-19, COVID-19 is something which has been spread all over the world. We had been hearing about flu, common cold, and everything, everyone used to get it. But what used to happen, their severity was very less, and we had known the medication for the same. The problem with COVID-19 is it is same just like your common cold, but more severe and something whose treatment we don't have. When we don't have a treatment, it leads to more mortalities and more morbidity. So it has become a widespread pandemic right now, and there is a fear in future it may become endemic. No country in the world has escaped from COVID-19. Almost everywhere, from a very rich country like United States or Canada to a developing country like you can say in somewhere in Africa, including popular countries like our own India and China, everyone has been affected. And it has been really a struggle for the healthcare workers as well as for the other frontline workers like police, like the sanitation workers, like the administrative officers to deal with it. Even the public, and it's really hard if someone loses their life and you come to know that your dear ones are no more. They have died because of pandemic. So it really becomes very, very tough. So yes, there's a burden of pandemic and the burden has led to lockdowns. And these lockdowns have further led to loss of jobs. It has damaged our economy. And because economy is damaged, there are more jobs gone, people don't have money, the basic livelihoods are gone. So yes, their burden is there and it's really affecting us today. And we are getting the waves again and again. There was a first wave, second wave. Now we are expecting a third wave. And maybe if we go by history, that like the Spanish flu, there may be a fourth wave. So yes, the burden is there and it's really affecting us.
So heading towards our next question, how long have you been fighting this battle of the health at the health center, and what was your family's reaction to it?
Uh, since the pandemic started in our country, it was in March 2020. March 2020, when the lockdown was came into effect in our country, and we got our first case in the month of June 2020. Since June 2020, we had a first wave, and it lasted almost till we can say January or February first week, and it was really something we didn't know, and there was a lot of fear, and but everyone came up well. All the health workers, all our nursing staff, all our doctors, and even our supporting staff, like you can say housekeeping staff, then the ward boys, the security, everyone came ahead, and the engineering department, everyone came ahead. They all supported. We started our sampling first, COVID-19 sampling, followed by we started a COVID ward, then a COVID ICU, and finally in the month of Jan, we started our vaccination. So, and then there was a second wave, and to a surprise of everyone, including the government, the second wave was more damaging. There were more casualties, the mortality rate became more high, the hospital beds became full. There was a situation when the patients were pleading with us to take them in, and we had no beds. We were running to our 100% capacity. And even though there was a shortage of oxygen cylinders, thankfully not in our state, but in many parts of country, even in our capital city. In Delhi, there was a shortage of cylinders. So yes, we have been fighting since long, and we hope this fight will end very soon.
So, what was your initial reaction when you were diagnosed with COVID-19?
I was diagnosed accidentally because I came in contact with someone. So because of contact tracing, I got myself sampled. I didn't have any symptoms, so I wouldn't be a right person to answer this question because it was just like a rest period for me. It's totally asymptomatic. But yes, those people who had symptoms, I have seen them suffering in the hospital. Yes, their families were worried. They were worried. Even I have seen some close friends and even some relatives and even among our extended family, MMU family, some of the relatives of our students and our faculty members, it, they had a great fear because when you see your own relative in intensive care unit on a ventilator struggling, it's really fearful. It was bad. But regarding my case, I was totally asymptomatic, thank to God. So, well, you can say you had a busy schedule, always busy in hospital. That was a 10, 12 days rest for me.
So, how did you react to highly stressful situations like the COVID-19 or deal effectively with the personal stress in your job as a doctor?
It was tough in the beginning because what was more tough as more than a doctor, as an administrator, when you have to take everyone along, you have to see everyone had a fear. Everyone naturally, it's a human nature to have a fear that what will happen to us. So to give everyone confidence, to take everyone into confidence and making them understand, giving them psychological and moral support that it's our duty that we have to be COVID warriors. We have to go ahead. So what we did, just to encourage everyone, we went for a slogan, "We will, we can." That is something we were using even as our DPs. I'm still using it. That was the only reason. Oh, this was one step. So what was required was everyone knew their job. What was required, a moral boosting. So everyone, we had to be strong. If I want my team has to be strong, then I have to be strong. So that's it.
So, what was the biggest challenge which you encountered in the past 1.5 year?
The challenges were different, if to be very frank, from the beginning till the second wave of pandemic. The beginning, the challenge was that positivity rate was not high, but the fear was high. The fear was much more, even though positive cases were less. I still remember in the month of March 2020, when a student in somewhere in Punjab University came positive, and some of our students had gone there. They came back rushing to us, sir, we went there. We went to Punjab University. We may get the disease. So beginning was like this. There was a lot of fear. Then slowly, the cases started coming. We understood that we have to fight it, and we were fighting. And we were winning over it. Slowly, when we saw in the month of October, November, the cases started tapering down. The cases started decreasing. So the confidence increased. And everyone was expecting, even the government was expecting in the month of January, the cases will go, they will disappear. And even we had started a vaccination. But the biggest challenge was when the cases started rising again. When this happened in the month of April, you can say, yeah, in the mid of April, when the cases started rising again, then everyone felt demoralized. That everyone's like exhausted. Yeah, we have been fighting this virus from last more than 1 year, and suddenly we feel that still a lot more has to be done. And so everyone was too much exhausted, and at that time it was challenging. We had to pick ourselves up again. That was the biggest challenge. Yes, and how did we overcome it? It was our duty, you know. How does a soldier or a army man overcomes when he or she is at war? That's a duty. So we doctors have to understand, even our future generations have to understand this profession won't be the same. It will be something like waging a war at borders. We are not waging a border, we are waging against a virus. Today is a virus, tomorrow there may be bacteria. Now, the doctor profession won't be same. It'll be just like a warriors. We are waging a war and this will continue because this COVID won't go. This COVID will become an endemic. When it becomes an endemic, that will exist with us. So we have to coexist with this virus and we never know in future because we people have played with the environment. We are the ones who are responsible for all this. We humans have damaged the environment. When we have damaged the environment, the viruses, bacteria, fungi, and everything will come up. So yes, we are prepared. We have to be prepared.
Okay. So our next question is, have you ever imagined in your career pathway that you'll face such kind of thing?
Frankly, no. From beginning, when I was a student, we always used to think, wow, what a profession. White coat, we will wear, we'll go to, everyone will give us respect, a stethoscope hanging on a neck and everything. Then we went for PG. I did my PG in ENT, then fellowship in asthma. We were like, okay, now we will do some surgery, this surgery, that surgery. We will teach students. No one imagined that day will come that we'll be wearing a mask all the time, even at homes. People have started wearing the mask at home. We never imagined that we will be wearing that PPE kit. Wearing a PPE kit was a challenge again. It's not easy to be stay in that kit for so many hours. So no one imagined it. We never imagined that this will happen. But yes, we always knew we had an oath as a doctors which we took. So we always knew there may be challenges and we are prepared for those challenges. And we hope our future generations, the next coming doctors after us will be equally prepared and more motivated because they are seeing this pandemic from beginning.
Right. Okay, so how did the patients react to this novel coronavirus, specifically to the rising case of Delta variant these days?
Patience. First of all, we should see how the public reacted. Public in the beginning was in denial. There's nothing like this. They were like, nothing like this is there. There's no virus which exists. No one was putting the masks on. Then when the cases started rising, they started putting the mask on. And the patients during the first wave of, you know what it was? The first wave was affecting mainly those with comorbidities and elderly age group. So we had an idea that this person may get severe symptoms. So the younger lot, the youngsters, the middle-aged group used to think we are safe. The kids were safe. So the reactions were okay. People were living with it. Okay, this person has a diabetes, this person has hypertension, so they got a disease, they are in intensive care, they'll become okay. But then came the second wave, and those who were affected were the younger ones. Those who were affected were the ones with more comorbidities. A good person who goes to gym daily, who does all kind of exercises, is very active at his or her work, getting the disease and getting it so severe that they end up in ICU. Then came the panic. The panic was so bad that people starting storing these oxygen cylinders. They started purchasing these oxygen cylinders. Even the person was okay. This was happening in our metropolitan cities. They started hiding these oxygen cylinders, stocking them up at their homes. That was the biggest blunder which was done by our community. Because of that, what happened? The result was those who required these cylinders, those who required the equipment, they never got it. There happened instances where those who belong to higher class, they were even stored these ventilators at home. And there was a talk going on. We got ventilators, we got cylinders. Can we have doctors stored at our home? Even there was something going on like this also. So the society came in panic, and the patients were also panicked. When everything goes right, see the patients and their relatives. Relatives are more who are panicked and worried. When everything goes right, the patient is recovering. The doctors, the nurses are gods and goddesses. But if something goes wrong, if the patient doesn't survive, and this morbidity, as I told you, is very high in this second wave. So then they become villains. Then even the beating of doctors, calling them bad names, saying that they are thieves and everything started. Luckily, we didn't have anything like this in Himachal. Himachal is a very peace-loving society, but these incidents happened in most parts of our country and even abroad in some other countries. So that way, when everything is good, patients and relatives are happy. If something goes wrong, they get panic, and the assaults on doctors and nurses, the healthcare workers also started. Not only doctors and nurses, even on the security staff. Even these people, even the police got assaulted. So yes, the society got panicked, but the biggest problem is happening now. Now, when the second wave has gone, what is the reaction of the society? The society thinks everything is normal. You see the kind of tourist rush which is happening at Manali, which is happening at Shimla, Masuri, all the hill stations of North India. So that clearly shows that people have again forgotten COVID. And today there are no rooms in the hotels, but if they continue this, they don't realize tomorrow there again won't be any beds in the hospital. And then in the vaccination, the society, how it reacted to the vaccination. In the beginning, there was a denial. If we could take this vaccine, we may get some neuro problem. We may get some genetic disorder. So people were not taking vaccine. Even we faced this problem in our hospital. There was reluctance to take this vaccine. I tried my best, my team tried my best to convince everyone to take vaccine. We could convince 90 to 95%. But again, there were rumors which were spread. What is his benefit in taking the vaccine? Why is he asking us to take the vaccine? Because we knew if this wave comes again, it will be very dangerous. And see the benefits of that vaccine. Those who got vaccinated, both doses, their symptoms were very less. And still, we have some people who are not vaccinated. So, society, there is reluctance. And when the problem comes, then there is a panic.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Also, hi, I'm Chirag Chawla. I'm a third year medical student from Government Medical College, Meerut. It's a pleasure to have you here with us,
Thanks
doctor.
for
And
coming.
yes, so I have one question from you, for you from my side.
Yeah.
Being from the medical fraternity, like you were diagnosed with COVID, but being from the medical fraternity, did you feel that it was a different way to, like, it helped you tackle the disease, or in general it helped you cope up with the diagnosis in general, as it would have been for a non-medico or someone from not the medical fraternity, or
Yeah.
how was it?
Yeah. Yeah. When I got diagnosed with COVID, first of thing, I was asymptomatic. So yes, if someone from a non-medical community who has no knowledge, there must maybe a panic button that something may happen to me. That was not there because I had seen patients in the hospital, so I was well prepared for it. I knew this contact tracing is important, and I self-isolate myself. If I was from a non-medical community, maybe I would have hidden my disease. That happened in our country because I'm asymptomatic. Why to isolate myself? I can go and be in the public. So yes, that way I had have knowledge of the disease. So I took extra precautions and I was well prepared that I could handle it better than maybe a non-medical, but that's not always true now. You know, we are living in a Google world. In Google world, everyone is a doctor, everyone is a healthcare professional because maybe they know more than us. In Google, if you see Google today, you are in third year, so you must be in EIENT today. Right? It's my
Yes.
own brand, ENT. So now you'll be surprised this layman will know more about these ENT disorders than me because they Google out everything. They say, sir, this treatment is there, no? So why are you not giving us this balloon sinuplasty? They don't know that balloon sinuplasty is not very effective in that country. Similarly, for COVID, we can say everyone is equally educated. Only thing people are, you can say, ignorant. They don't want to think about it.
Agreed. Thank you so much for your answer, doctor. I'll hand it back to Vipra for a last few questions.
Yeah, thank you.
So, sir, how was your daily routine during the pandemic?
Daily routine during the pandemic. Um, the difference which happened in the daily routine was that we had closed our regular surgeries, so there were no operations or surgical procedures which were performed. But the daily routine was such that in the morning, every morning there has to be a round of the COVID ward and COVID ICU, that you wearing a PP kit, going inside, doing the round, and coming back, going to the second block, again doing the round, coming back. That used to take around 2 to 3 hours, followed by the meetings regarding COVID, regarding vaccination. So the whole day was consumed like that from morning 9 to 5. Then evening, we used to do contact tracing. See, all the reports of these COVID positive patients and staff used to come in the evening. So where I'm sitting now, the same place we used to come in the evening around 8, 9 p.m. And we used to have a full meeting that what is the contact tracing of this person, that person, and we used to call them and we used to tell them you have to be isolated, you have to be tested, you have to undergo RT-PCR. So it was like almost on a 24-hour duty during the peak of the pandemic, but much relaxed today, as today things are okay and hopefully they'll remain okay.
So, sir, what advice should we give to the society so that we ensure that this society is in a more progressive way?
Uh, First of all, society has to follow COVID appropriate behavior, which is very, very important. Whenever we go outdoors, we have to follow the social distancing, mask, and use sanitizers. Second, everyone has to undergo vaccination. Third, if by God forbid anyone gets the disease, not to panic, but to isolate. And if disease becomes severe, not to wait at home. You know, another problem which we faced, Vipra, was that the people used to hide their symptoms. Why this became very severe? People started hiding their symptoms. A patient gets the symptom, they used to stay at home for good 7 to 8 days and only come to hospital when they can't breathe, when the saturation level used to fall to nearly 40-50%. That became a major reason for deaths, for morbidity. So another advice will be not to hide the symptoms. Even if a mild symptom, don't worry about isolation, worry about life. If you live for long, isolation for 10 days, it doesn't matter. Worry for your life, because when you die, you are not the only person who dies. It's the whole family which suffers, which is left behind. So that's the advice for the society.
So, sir, would you like to share some views or basically a knowledge about the rising cases of the Delta variant?
Delta variant is something which is in our country during the second wave. It's not something new for us. We are the suppliers of Delta variant to the world. It's other way. We had this Delta variant long back. We can say in the month of April, May. Now with the Delta plus, plus and whatever, they will come to us. But Delta variant is now spreading to other countries. Recently, I heard it's gone to Indonesia, then it has gone to even UK and now US. So Delta variant, the problem with Delta variant is it affects the youngsters more and it affects those without any comorbidities more. So, and even vaccines are protective against, you can say, morbidity. But person can get affected with Delta variant even after vaccines. So that's the problem will be Delta plus, because Delta plus will be something new. It's not there in our country so far. So when it comes, we are not prepared for it. And to save ourselves from it, what the literature says, what the scientific literature says, 60% of our population should be vaccinated. But we are not a population of 1 crore or 2 crore as compared to some other countries. We are a population of, in you can say 134, 135 crores today. And to vaccinate 135 crores of us will be a challenge for government, for any government. And that is something we won't be able to achieve. So we have to be prepared for the worst. And that's what the government is doing today. They're preparing for the worst. They are making more hospital beds, they're increasing hospital beds, and they're increasing pediatric beds. Now, what the fear is, this Delta Plus will affect the pediatric age group. And once it affects the pediatric age group, you see the panic. You saw the panic when the youngsters were involved. And when the kids will be involved, the parents, the kind of panic will be there. So the government is trying to prepare for it, but we have to vaccinate our children before we get this wave. And hopefully we will somewhere reach the target.
So, sir, last question. What was the most inspiring part of your journey as a physician?
As a physician, also you want to journal everything, not only COVID, right? Yeah. As a clinician, most inspiring, see, are your teachers. I had my guide, Dr. Z. Mohiuddin. He was my biggest inspiration. He is my biggest inspiration. I saw him working 24 hours. He's a head and neck surgeon. When I see him working 24 hours, I got a dedication from him that yes, if he can do it, sir can do it, I can also do it. And my second inspiration today are my students. If I see my students are interested, I feel get more involved in their studies. I feel to become more part of their growth, of their, you can say, academic growth. So these are two inspirations. One was my guide, and second is my students.
And sir, a takeaway message for us.
Okay, take away message. And this us means all of you are medicals or you belong to different professions.
So both.
Both. It's a mix.
You mix.
Take away message for medicals, medical students is please be prepared for a hard job ahead. You are the warriors, you are the future warriors, and so you will be dealing after us. When we go at a backstage, you people will come in the front, and you will be dealing with the future problems, future health problems, and the takeaway message for others, other students or other society members is, first of all, give respect to the COVID warriors. They are doing a lot. They are trying their best. And second, everyone has to contribute. Even an engineer, the person who is doing engineering, they have to contribute on the biomedical side by better equipments, by better ventilators. So everyone has a role. All of us, the world, everyone is a warrior against this virus. One is a barrier even by staying at home, by following mask, social distancing, or this COVID appropriate behavior, all of us are warriors. So we are prepared for it. We have to be better prepared for it. And for the students, study more, study best, and come ahead and take our place in a better way.
So it was wonderful to see you today. After hearing your story, we all are inspired and motivated, and your takeaway message is a gift for us. Thank you so much for being with us today, sir.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure to be with you this time, and I hope I can interact with you more in the future. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.